Happy Sabbath, friends. As we continue our series on Christian allegories, I'd like to invite you to the world of Narnia. The Chronicles of Narnia is a series of 7 books written by the Christian author Clive Staples Lewis, or C.S. Lewis, as most people know him. He was born in Belfast, Ireland, in 1898. He was an influential Christian writer of his day, and his works are still known and loved by many. He has written over 30 books, including The Screwtape Letters, Mere Christianity, and of course, The Chronicles of Narnia. These books about Narnia were actually the only books for children that Lewis wrote. I believe that what made Lewis such an effective defender of Christianity was not only his relationship with God, but his spiritual struggles as well. He was raised in a religious family, but at the age of 17, told a friend that, quote, "I believe in no religion. There is absolutely no proof for any of them. And from a philosophical standpoint, Christianity is not even the best." Unquote. Lewis went on to explore other philosophies and world religions, but 15 years later, he wrote to the very same friend a rather different note. Christianity is God expressing himself through what we call real things, namely the actual incarnation, crucifixion, and resurrection. Lewis once himself said that he certainly remembered what Christianity looks like from the outside. In other words, he understood atheism. He felt the force of its arguments. He even once called himself a most reluctant convert to the Christian faith. But his reluctance was a sign of his spiritual integrity. He fully recognized that his commitment to the Christian faith would be a life-changing event. Chronologically, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which was published in 1950, is the second book of the Narnia series, but was the first book that Lewis wrote. Set in England during World War II, the book is about 4 siblings, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy, who are sent to live in the countryside with an otherwise unnamed professor during the bombing of London. Lucy, who is the youngest, discovers a magic wardrobe in the professor's home. Upon stepping inside, she finds herself walking into the strange land of Narnia. Lucy befriends a talking fawn named Mr. Tumnus, and learns that Narnia has been enslaved by the evil powers of the White Witch, who rules the land and keeps it always winter, but never Christmas. When Lucy returns, her siblings don't believe her story about Narnia. One day, Edmund follows Lucy into the wardrobe and finds himself in Narnia. Unfortunately, he meets the White Witch herself and is fooled into believing that the witch is good. Eventually, Peter and Susan also enter Narnia with Lucy and Edmund, where they discover from Mr. and Mrs. Beaver that Mr. Tumnus has been captured by the White Witch. This is also where the children first hear the name of Aslan, the lion and the rightful ruler of Narnia. Let me share this passage with you. They say that Aslan is on the move, perhaps has already landed. And now a very curious thing happens. None of the children knew who Aslan was any more than you do. But the moment the beaver had spoken these words, everyone felt quite different. Perhaps it has sometimes happened to you in a dream that someone says something which you don't understand, but in the dream it feels as if it has some enormous meaning, either a terrifying one which turns the whole dream into a nightmare, or else a lovely meaning too lovely to put into words, which makes the dream so beautiful that you remember it all your life and are always wishing to get into that dream again. It was like that now. At the name of Aslan, each one of the children felt something jump inside. Edmund felt a sensation of mysterious horror. Peter felt suddenly brave and adventurous. Susan felt as if some delicious smell or some delightful strain of music had just floated by her. And Lucy got the feeling you have when you wake up in the morning and realize that it is the beginning of the holidays or the beginning of summer. Lucy, the children's reaction to Aslan ties into their characters and the idea that faith is intensely personal. Peter is courageous, and the mention of Aslan makes him feel brave and adventurous. For Susan, who is sweet and gentle, it evokes delicious and delightful feelings. For Lucy, who is an honest, happy, and kind person, it gives her feelings of hopeful anticipation. When you wake up in the morning to the start of the holidays or the beginning of summer, she demonstrates the deep excitement and joy that is best understood by children and the faith of a child that is emphasized in the Synoptic Gospels. For Peter, Lucy, and Susan, Aslan feels comfortable, good, and powerful. But for Edmund, he grows uneasy and reacts with horror because he has been tricked by and has sided with Aslan's enemy, the White Witch. How does the mention or thought of Jesus make you feel? Does it bring you comfort, like it does Peter, Susan, and Lucy? Or like Edmund? Does it terrify you? Which child do you see yourself relating to? What is your personal connection? Edmund quietly slips away and makes his way to the witch's castle, where he is taken captive by the witch and starts to realize the error of his ways. The witch has a plan of her own. She will kill Edmund and prevent a prophecy of Narnia that states that when 4 humans, 2 sons of Adam and 2 daughters of Eve, sit on the thrones at the castle of Cair Paravel, it will end her reign and the reign over Narnia. The remaining children continue their travels to a place called the Stone Table, where they finally meet Aslan and ask him to save Edmund from the wrath of the White Witch. Aslan tells them that all will be done, but it may be harder than they think. That night, Aslan sends out a team to rescue Edmund. And the next morning, the other children see Edmund and Aslan talking. This conversation is not described in the book. In fact, no one else ever hears it, but it was one that Edmund never forgot. When they were done talking, Aslan tells the others, "Here is your brother. There is no need to talk to him about what is past. Our past mistakes, our sins, as described in Micah 7:19, are cast into the depths of the ocean." Isaiah 43:25 promises that God would blot out our transgressions and not remember our sins. If God does not bring up our past mistakes, then certainly we should pattern our behavior after Him and not make others or ourselves feel guilty about the past. You may think this would be a good place to end the story, but the witch makes an appearance and insists on speaking to Aslan. She knows the laws of Narnia that state that every traitor in the land belongs to her as her lawful prey, and that she has a claim on Edmund's life. This reminds me of Paul's words in Romans 5, that the wages of sin is death. Aslan offers his life in the place of Edmund, and the witch accepts. Late at night, Aslan is accompanied by Lucy and Susan for a time before he meets the witch and her evil followers. Aslan is sacrificed at the stone table, the very place where the children first had met him. Susan and Lucy grieve all night, but discover in the morning that Aslan has risen from the dead. He explains to them that the witch's knowledge about the deep magic and laws of Narnia was limited. What she did not know was that when a willing victim who has committed no treachery was killed instead of a traitor, the stone table would crack and death would start working backwards. After Aslan's resurrection, Aslan carries his sisters to the witch's castle where they free all of the prisoners who had been turned into stone, a parallel to the resurrection of the dead from their sleep-like states when Christ returns. The newly resurrected follow Aslan to join the final battle and help the children defeat the witch's army and the witch's cave. Aslan crowns the four children and proclaims that once a king or queen in Narnia, always a king or queen. The four siblings govern Narnia well and have a long and happy reign, almost forgetting their lives in England. And one day, many years later, the four siblings are on a hunt for the elusive white stag and find themselves at the edge of a forest and see a rather nostalgic lamppost in the middle of the thick forest. They follow the lamppost, find their way through branches, then coats, and then eventually tumble out of the wardrobe, back into the spare room, returning to the very moment they had entered Narnia. When they tell the professor these stories, he tells them, yes, they'll make their way back to Narnia once again, because once a king in Narnia, always a king. And this is just the beginning of the series. In Romans 5, verses 6 through 8, it says, at just the right time, when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though for a good person someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Aslan's sacrifice for Edmund is to me a reminder of Christ's sacrifice for the sins of mankind. Like Edmund, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. In our sinful, powerless state, Christ died for the ungodly. There is no caveat. Christ didn't ask you to become perfect, to become righteous first, to become sinless, before he extended his grace. Instead, he died for us to demonstrate his own love for us. In the book, it's worth noting that it is unclear whether Edmund was ever made aware of Aslan's sacrifice, for only his sisters witnessed it. But it didn't make it any less significant, for salvation is freely given, no matter how much or little we can comprehend it. It is ours for the asking. If you keep reading through the series, you will eventually find out the identity of the professor, and bit by bit, you'll learn a little more about Aslan. Just like our Bible, you may have started out by reading a few stories, perhaps the Gospels, perhaps a story you heard when you were a kid in Sabbath school. But bit by bit, as you explore the other books, it is my hope that you will come to know the character of God even better.